top of page 12, and we're at my friend suggested, second paragraph. So my friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. He said, why don't you choose your own conception of God? So again, italicized words, meaning they want you to pay attention. So it's pretty important. And we talked a lot about last week, where, especially on the top of 11, where Bill talked about Christ, and then a couple sentences down, he talked about the devil, the boss universal. So being a veteran, he saw a lot of bad things in war. So he believed, and then he got to the point where he basically got mad at God for the things that he saw in war. And we also read how things, when Ebby showed up to his house, a lot of, the place that his grandfather took him to, he brought him to a church, and a lot of things, it brought back memories. When Ebby was there, a lot of the stuff that he went through in church all of a sudden, brought back memories to him. So, at this point, it's not that he doesn't believe. He's an agnostic. He already said that. But he's in a place where he's pissed off at God. A lot of people come into AA pissed off at God. Most people that say they don't believe actually have gone through something to make them angry at God. So that's where Bill's at, and this is Ebby saying, why don't you choose your own conception? If you have a problem with the God that you were raised with, choose your own conception, and that helped. That helped Bill at least move forward. So again, we're not on step 2, we're not on step 3 where God is. We're on step 1, where we want to tell the newcomer, if they're atheist, if they're agnostic, if they hate God, it's about you coming to a relationship with God. So if you don't like the word God, use something else that you can move forward with. So that keeps the doors open for the newcomer. So that hit Bill hard, and the next line says, that statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered for many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. So more italicized words. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning. So that's huge. Someone comes through the door, they can't stop drinking, they're dying, and you start talking about God, it may turn them right back outside of the door. They don't have to believe right then and there when they get here. It's only a matter of, are you willing to believe? And we'll definitely get in more to how important willingness is, when we get here. I saw that growth could start from that point. And by the way, I have all that highlighted. All those italicized words, I have that highlighted. And then this next sentence, upon a foundation of complete willingness, I have that highlighted. I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. Yes?
Which ones did you have highlighted?
Starting with, it was only a matter of being willing to believe. Thus was I convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. At long last I saw, I felt, I believed. Scales of pride and prejudice fell from my eyes. A new world came into view. I highlighted that, and that is a promise. And that's really what God wants. He wants a personal relationship with you. So when you get to you get to that place of being willing to believe, not as you grow through the program, that relationship gets stronger, but when you just get to the point of being willing, all of a sudden, what Bill went through is an entire new world came into view. Not going to say that happens to everyone. So with Bill, it was instant. The real significance of my experience at the cathedral, so talking about the experience with his grandfather, burst upon me. For a brief moment, I had needed and wanted God. There had been a humble willingness to have him with me and he came. But soon the sense of his presence had been blotted out by worldly clamors, mostly of those within myself. And so it had been ever since, how blind I had been. But you see, just in those last couple sentences, how him is capitalized, he is capitalized, his is capitalized. They do that on purpose in the book. The Bible does the same thing. When you're talking about God, they capitalize, whether they're using that word or they're using words to describe God, they will capitalize it. The big book does the same thing. That's where they got that idea from. This page, I would just say highlight the whole thing, but this is starting with at the hospital. I wrote, you want to write in big letters at the top, Bill did the steps in the hospital. We were just talking about willingness and what it takes to do the work. We're going to see how Bill did the work, how he did. At this point, we already discussed there were 6 steps that they got from the Oxford groups. So Ebby is bringing him those 6 steps. And Bill, obviously, when we know the state of condition that he was in. His DTs were beyond bad. Without a hospital, he'd be dead. So he's in the hospital with the help of Ebby. And, like I said, just write, this is how Bill did the work. This is how he did the steps. I have this highlighted. At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirium tremens, and we talked about the DTs. So, you can, and you don't have to highlight all of it. I would just bracket this entire, basically the rest of the page, because all of this is important. There I humbly offered myself to God. So remember, he's in the hospital. And you'll hear in meetings, I know I did, I don't know about you guys, but I would go to meetings and I would hear someone say they've been on step 4 for a year. I would hear someone say they're on step 8 for 6 months. I would hear things like that in the room, and I was dying now. I needed help now. And to hear stuff like that, it drove me out the door, me personally. I would hear how long it would take these people to do the steps, and it was just a turnoff. I couldn't fathom, waiting that long to do a step. And then I got in this workshop, and I'm realizing the author of this book, how he did the steps. He's going through DTs, he's going through physical and mental torture in the hospital, and he got busy right away in the hospital. So there I humbly offered myself to God, as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and protection and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without him I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch. I have not had a drink since. Pretty powerful there. What did he call defects of character there? He called them sins. I ruthlessly faced my sins. My schoolmate visited me. So right above that, right, Ebby Thatcher. That's the schoolmate that visited him. I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. What step is that? Step 5, right? Step 5, right above that. He's confessing his sins to another person. Step 5. We made a list of people I had hurt or toward whom I felt resentment. What step is that? 8. 4 and 8. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals admitting my wrong. What's that?
9.
Step 9. He's not doing the actual amends, but he's willing to make those amends with those people. Never was I to be critical of them. I was to right all such matters to the utmost of my ability. I was to test my thinking by the new God conscious within. He's got a new God conscious. What step is that? Step 3. And I would write these steps right next to it. And I wrote out to the side of these, Bill worked the steps in the hospital. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. A lot of things change in recovery, doesn't it? Well, especially when you're doing the work. I mean, a lot of things that you thought were real and true, a lot of things you thought were common sense, all of a sudden that becomes uncommon sense. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as He would have me. Sounds like meditation, sounds like prayer. Here's a great direction. I would circle this, highlight it. This one really helped me in recovery. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request bore on my usefulness to others. Up until I saw this, and I was raised in religion, but my prayers were always about me. My prayers were always repetitive about what I wanted, set prayers. So there was really, no relationship with God, and there was sure no prayer for other people. And Bill's telling us here, we absolutely better start right away praying for other people. And you'll see what that does for you when you start doing it, especially your enemies, especially the people that piss you off. When you start praying for them, it starts changing, your whole mindset. So that's important. And that is an affirmation on page 87. Just write page 87 right there, and we'll come back to it when we get there. See? Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. So that's a powerful page. If someone approaches you, well, you guys are already here, and let me put it this way. If you see a newcomer come in the room and they need help, and they need help, is me just telling them to go to another meeting helping them? No. And I was told that a lot. I used to see old timers tell people that a lot. Do 90 meetings in 90 days. That's good. We need to do that. We need to be around recovery, people that are like us. But if someone wants help and needs help, everybody in this room has their experience, strength, and hope. We know how to give them a big book. We can start helping them right away. That's what the help they're talking about is. It's not just, here's my phone number, here's a list of phone numbers, go to this meeting, go to that meeting. We need to do that, but the real help is getting them into the process of the 12 steps as soon as possible. And if anybody disagrees with you when you say that, you show them this page. How did the author of this book do the work? He did it in the hospital while he was going through the DTs. Pretty powerful. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator. That is a promise. And that I would have the elements, I love this, I would highlight this, of a way of living which answered all my problems. Doesn't say some, doesn't say most. It says all. And it's okay to not believe that. I didn't. There was stuff like this when I was still shaking and going through the work and going through that emotional roller coaster. I didn't believe that. Answered all my problems. I'm on the brink of divorce. I lost my home. I'm dying. I got liver problems. What do you mean all my problems? Over time, God solved all my problems. So it's okay if you don't believe it now. These promises, they happen as we continue to do the work. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things, and I would highlight this, were the essential requirements. Essential means indispensable, absolute. We have to have them. What do we have to have? Willingness, honesty, humility. I would highlight this whole next small paragraph. This is where we get the simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant the destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. So, I mean, when you look at the steps, when you look, just look at them on the wall, they look simple. I thought they'd look simple. I'd start doing them in my head when I get there. Step one, I mean, we all get to the point where we know what drinking and drugging does to us. We all get to the point, I think, when we know what one does to us, and we get to that point of surrender and we want to start listening and paying attention. So it's like I would look at step one, and because I believed in God, I do 1, 2, and 3 in like seconds. There's a reason why step one is how many pages? 43 pages. Everything before that, the forewords, and then how important the doctor's opinion is. So understanding truly what alcoholism is what I didn't have. I didn't understand that mind that I was up against. And I didn't have a relationship with God. I believed in him, but the relationship wasn't there. It was repetitive prayer. It was, religion, what I was taught. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, and I would highlight the rest. Because the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. And right next to that, you can write spiritual awakening. That's how Bill describes his personal spiritual awakening. You can actually, this is on YouTube, his whole speech, it's in black and white, but that paragraph is exactly how his testimony is when he talks about what happened to him. It had to be that way for AA to even get started. It had to be a sudden impact on Bill, and we're going to read that for most of us, that's not what happens. Was there any sudden, bam, revolutionary obsession removed for anybody here? Yeah? Yeah? Okay.
I thought so.
Okay. Well, that can happen too. That can happen too. For the point is, it's different for everybody. Don't expect this revolutionary change to happen when you get here, or on step 3, or on step 9, or on it's going to happen when God wants it to happen for you. Then the eyes open.
Yeah, I was 5 years sober.
There you go.
When it happened.
There you go.
I mean, I didn't think this program worked. Really didn't.
And we're going to read how Dr. Bob he struggled for a couple years.
Well, like you were saying earlier, when you listen to people saying I've been stuck on this stuff, or taking this long, and I got to a point where I called my sponsor and I said, I need to get busy. I need to do it. Honestly, I need to do it now. And he was like, okay, can you come over Saturday? And I said, no, I'll be dead.
Wow.
I was that far gone. 5 years sober, I was going to kill myself because I couldn't wait any longer.
Yeah.
And so in the next 2 hours is when I did my fourth step completely.
Wow.
So, and it did. It was just all of a sudden that all of that craziness was gone. I didn't know where it went. So, it was weird to have a calm mind for the first time in a long time.
Wow. I want to hear more about that when we get to step 4, because my grand sponsor called that a catharsis. There's so much stuff that we have inside of us going all the way back to 2-3 years old that we don't know, that's just crushing us.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
When you said that, and it was when before my surgery, things started coming back to me that I had put away, denied, whatever, and it was beyond ugly. It was
Yep.
from 7 and 8 years old that I just pushed out of my mind.
Thought it was gone,
Thought- yeah.
but then
Well,
it's
I didn't
been-
even realize it had happened until I was actually
Oh,
dying.
gotcha.
And everything just started flooding my brain.
Yep.
And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff. All right, for a moment, so he's having this spiritual awakening. For a moment, I was alarmed and called my friend the doctor to ask if I were still sane. So he picks up the phone and dials Silkworth, and he's wondering if he's even, still sane, because he can't believe that obsession has been lifted. He-
This is not Dr. Bob is going?
No, that's Silkworth, yeah. So this is before Bill has even met Bob. This is Bill going through it by himself, and his main person of contact was Dr. Silkworth. So finally he shook his head, saying, "This is Silkworth. Something has happened to you I don't understand, but you had better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were." The good doctor now sees many men who have had such experiences. He knows they are real. Again, Silkworth's honesty and the way he listened to Bill was it's undescribable how important he was to the program. He's a doctor. We already went through his credentials. He's specialized in alcoholism, but he said he didn't have an answer. Bill's explaining what just happened to him. And, Silkworth, it doesn't say if he was a believer. It doesn't sound like he was. But Bill's explaining what happened to him, that God removed his obsession, and Silkworth absolutely believed him. And he's telling him to hang on to it. And what else does he let Bill do that we already talked about? Lets him help his other patients. That's amazing.
He's objective.
Absolutely.
He really was. He looked at things like with a curious mind. He didn't just say,
No.
we can't.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, that works, okay.
That's
Let's
right.
keep going with it.
And most of the medical field, the people that he worked with, were just like that. No, what are you talking about? And he stood against that. That's what made him such a huge part of Alcoholics Anonymous. He didn't care what his other doctors thought. He saw these miracles happening in his hospital. He saw it happen with Bill, and then when Bill started helping his patients, all of a sudden, miracle after miracle after miracle. So, powerful. While I lay in the hospital, the thought came, boom, that there were thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have what had been so freely given to me. Where'd that thought come from? From God. Bill's not going to think of that on his own, Perhaps I could help some of them. They, in turn, might work with others. I would highlight all those sentences, because that is the cornerstone of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Starting from YLA.
Thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad. Yep, just highlight that whole paragraph. And that's how you know God was involved right away at the start of this. Bill could have said, "I'm healed. I don't want to drink anymore. I'm good. Let me go home, and remember what he is. He's a stockbroker. Let me now that I'm sober, let me go see how much money I can make." What was his thought? Help others. And God gave him that thought. Powerful. This program does not work without helping others. So you see where it starts. It starts way before page 1. That concept of altruism, that it was in the doctor's opinion. Altruism, the unselfish interest in the welfare of others. So that.
I think one of the things that, doing this when I was, the right way, I thought, I thought I knew what I was doing. But one of the things that always was hard for me is trying to help people without, preaching to them too much.
Mm-hmm.
Only because I know for me that the only way that this is gonna save anyone, and but just for me, is through him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few meetings that you go to where you just your higher power, but the whole time I wanted to tell him,
Mm-hmm.
and and I thought that was humility that I was supposed to have to come around. But then, I don't know.
And I understand that. I do too. You need to believe this way. Right when they come in, it's not going to work with an alcoholic. In order for them to keep coming back, that I've found, is for them to understand alcoholism. You got to understand what you're up against before you can even be concerned about God. I want to give them God with all my heart right away, but when most of us are a day, when most of us, even if you believe, you don't believe, wherever you're at, that suffering that you're going through, I'm a believer and I don't want to be preached to. I came in a believer, and when I heard the solution was God, I thought I was done. If the solution's God, I believe in Him. What point is this? How is this going to work for me if I already believe? It was through helping others that I found a real relationship with God.
Well,
And I didn't get to that point until I understood what alcoholism truly was.
and then that's because the steps are set up that way.
Exactly.
And,
For
you
a
know,
reason.
Day 1 through 12, we can't start helping, we can, but we can't truly help somebody until we've been there.
And that's why they emphasize step 1 more than any other step.
Well, I always say, you can believe in Santa, that doesn't make him real.
Mm-hmm.
Same with God, you can believe in him all you want. But if
Mhm.
you don't have faith to back what your belief is,
Mm-hmm.
there's no point.
Yeah.
So that's what got me through is faith. So,
Faith is huge.
I know when I came in,
Huge.
like you were saying, people gave me a card with numbers and call them and stuff. Like, I'm stubborn, like, yeah, I don't want to see it. And then you ask somebody to be a sponsor,
Mhm.
they kind of just brush you off, like, oh, I don't have time. Kind of like shut you down even more than what you're already feeling when you come into Alcoholics Anonymous, you know what I mean? Then this time I came in when I met Bill, my sponsor, that same day is when I got straight to it, like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, stay a little bit later, let me give you this book and let's start this right here. And that's actually what helped me more, you know what I mean? Than somebody come in and just give me a card, like you're saying, like, jumping right into it and then being open-minded, because I'm like, I'm tired of going through all the stuff I've been going through. So for me, it's like I found God and AA at the same time. So that honestly helped me out more.
It did.
I'm like, it's opening my mind to both of them at the same time. So it's like one feeds the other, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's like I'm wanting to yearn for more and more and more, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
that's kind of like what helped me, that's helping me stay sober and helping me get through this too. And like I try to give back to people too at the same time, but then it's also like I want to be good enough to when I give them to them, like how like what I'm learning so that they can jump on it the right way too, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I feel like I can help somebody now, but I want to give it to them raw, like here's what you need, this is what I know works.
Yep.
'Cause if I tell you what I went through and stuff, you'll be like, damn, this shit really does work, you know what I mean? Because like as I talk to some of my friends now, they're like, damn, I can't believe how much you changed by giving your life to God and coming to AA and midnight. They're like, bro, I know the stuff you were doing. Like, I can vouch for the stuff genuinely that you were doing. And, like, see, now it's a miracle, you know what I mean? And like I said, through the grace of God is why I got to this point where I'm at now, you know what I mean?
And that's what you just said. That's the stuff that everybody has, what you've gone through. In drug addiction and alcoholism, everybody has been given a gift to help another person,
And I think with your time, I think you have an advantage over somebody who has a lot more time, because you're still that raw stage where somebody coming in brand new goes, oh, you got a year or 90 days or whatever, I can
Yep.
achieve that, where 12, 15 years, 20 years, they're like,
Impossible.
You're funny.
Yeah.
So I think early sobriety, when you do get this, you have a better advantage to help a newcomer than somebody who has more time.
That makes sense.
You've said that before too.
Yep. Yep.
Definitely makes sense.
That's why anybody that I try to help, I always try to get them to help other people as soon as possible.
Right.
I don't mess around with the steps. I want you guys to get through the steps. The steps don't stop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your first time through them, it's not like you're going to be done with them. So, yeah, they call this book a design for living. So it's going to show us how to get through life. But the soonest you can get to start helping another person is going to help you immensely.
And the hard thing too is once you have recovered, trying to show somebody what your past life was, they don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
When I talk to people about my past, they're like, whatever. One of the biggest things that I hear, you wouldn't understand.
Mm-hmm. You hear that a lot?
You'd be surprised,
I say that a lot too.
Yep.
I mean, I was 12, 13 years old on the streets of Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I I have a past, but you don't tend to show that when you're recovered. And it's really hard for the newcomers to see it.
Yep.
Or believe it.
Yep.
So.
They won't always believe me, but.
It's okay.
Yeah. It's hard not to.
We
believe
don't
you.
stop sharing our past. I mean, it's, yeah.
This is your present tense. This is your present.
Okay, now this paragraph, it ends on the top of page 15. We're going to keep going back to this paragraph as we keep on going through this book. That's how important this is. Because whether you're 1 day sober, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, it all comes back to this. That's how important this is. There's 3 vital things in here that I'll point out to you. So my friend, this is Ebby, right, Ebby down there. My friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. Some of my affairs? All my affairs. Particularly, was it imperative to work with others? Word for imperative is vital, and we've looked up vital, necessary to the maintenance of life. Imperative, vital, necessary to the maintenance of life. If I think I can get through this process and go through the rest of my life without helping other people, not going to work. Some people do. I mean, I've seen some old timers that are 40-some years saying they've never sponsored anybody. That my mind immediately goes to, well, you're not an alcoholic, but you know.
But are they sober and recovered?
Exactly. And is everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous an alcoholic? No. Who do I have to know is an alcoholic?
You.
Me. One person. I have to know that I'm an alcoholic. That's what matters.
As I get more into this, like the obsession is gone, but my other like sins start to come up, and I start to like get more into the Bible, like lustful ways and all this other stuff. It's like one thing left and another thing popped up. You know what I mean?
Always new trials.
Yeah.
Yep. Always new
Trade
trials.
one addiction for another.
Yep.
You know that, right? You're being attacked.
But there's a solution for all of them, that's the good news. Working with others is the most important, as we'll find out. But highlight that. And then it said, as he has worked with me. Faith without works was dead, he said. I wonder where he got that from.
Huh.
So you can write down the book of James. That's where they got that from. They got that from the Bible. Trish talked about faith earlier. Faith is huge. But I can have faith all I want sitting at home by myself. If I don't take action to do something about the faith I have, faith without works is dead. In the book of James, faith is not a salvation issue. He's not talking about you have to do these works to be saved. That's not what he's saying. He's saying when you have faith in God, it's going to inspire you from the inside out to want to do good works. That's what it's saying. And in the program of recovery, in the 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, we call that action. You know, I can read these steps. I can say that I did them. They make it impossible for you to do these steps by yourself, by the way, but action is a huge part of this program.
And it's funny you say that because the Big Book was originally designed as a self-help book because there were programs and meetings everywhere, so they would send it out as a self-help book and people would go through it.
And just those words, self-help, because we're gonna find out what our true problem is, and it's self. So faith without works is dead. That comes with the book of James. And how appallingly true for the alcoholic. Here's these 3 things I was going to talk to you about. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. So there's 3 things there. One is perfect and enlarge spiritual life. And I wrote them 1, 2, and 3 right below, right at the bottom. perfect and enlarge spiritual life. 2 is work. I underlined work, spiritual life through work. What's the work? The 12 steps. And 3, again, self-sacrifice for others. Does it say others in Alcoholics Anonymous?
No.
You're going to find the work inside these rooms is easy. It's the helping people outside of these rooms that there's some action.
It really is. It really is.
But those 3 things are huge. Perfect and large spiritual life. That's growing your relationship with God. Work, the 12 steps, and helping others. Those 3 things. So here it is. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith, we just read about it, would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. So the authors, they're not trying to scare us. They're telling us flat out, if we don't do these things, I don't care how long you're sober, you're going to drink again. And that's why we're going to keep going back to this. But they're not trying to scare us. They're just saying, with us, it is just like that. This is our experience, first 100 alcoholics. When we don't do these things, we drink. Doesn't matter how much time you have. That's why...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Would that be a promise? If we did not work, we would surely drink again.
That
we
is
would
a
surely
promise,
die.
yes.
Big old promise. Like I said, not all the promises are good.
No, that's one thing you'll learn real quick is that all promises are good.
Which is a good thing.
Because if we drink, we die.
We have to know that. We have to remember it. And as we go through the book, we're going to read about other alcoholics. And it'll say right next to it what, they went through a phase of why they drank. But it's always going to say they failed to enlarge their spiritual life.
And, this used to catch me up is, if I drink, I will die. And I thought that meant physically. No, it means spiritually.
Or both, yeah.
Spiritually die, and you just are that empty vessel back where you were previous,
Either way, it's a bad place to be, physically, mentally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dead is just...
See, you know what my daughter went through, so you know I would be murdered.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I also wrote no gray area. It's pretty black and white right there. If I don't do these things, I am going to drink again. In my experience, it's very true. I got right up to that line where I wasn't doing these 3 things, and I made the decision to drink. It didn't happen. God intervened, but, after a decade of recovery, or not drinking the past 3 years, I made that decision to drink again. And I was helping tons of people. I cut off everything. So, this is absolutely true in my experience. And there's a lot of old timers that'll tell you, this guy will tell you, there's a lot of old timers will tell you the same thing. We all get in these phases where we stop doing these things and you start getting into a very bad place. And you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to get harder back into recovery like you did, which is awesome. And that's what I did. Actually God did it. Or you're going to drink.
We're almost at fitness.
I'd get 10-year hitch. 10 years, went through it. 20 years, I went through it. 30 years, I went through it. Every 10 years, it's like, bam.
What was your solution for every 10 years that you went through it?
Start working with people.
Yeah.
Get back into the book. Get right with God.
And that's what you got to do.
Well, and like you said, with others, it doesn't say alcoholics, it says with others.
Others.
And that I have held on to because, when COVID hit and everything went down and meetings were scarce, you name it, I put all of this energy into work and the people I work with and whatever they were going through, I would use these principles on helping them. And so I was able to continue it outside of the rooms, and that helped me get through big time.
Yeah.
So,
And that was like what kind of off-put me in Alcoholics Anonymous the first time was that, you go to meetings and stuff and you meet people that are like, if it's not AA, I don't want nothing to do with it. And it's like, I understand, for their sobriety, it's like, how are you supposed to help people that wanna do it, but, you know, it's like, you know, like my drinking didn't help me make me a good person by no means, but, you know, there was, you know, there's always certain things that I had in principle, you know, with or without the program. It's just every time I drink and every time I use, it just kind of go out the window almost, which is part of the disease.
But you're still here. And everything you went through is not out the window. It's actually a part of your solution.
You just didn't use it.
Yep.
I heard the other day, this one guy was saying that when he drinks alcohol, it makes his morals go out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And I-
For sure.
When he said that, I was like, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
That's how it was.
He drowns his morals.
All right, my wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. It was fortunate for my old business associates remained skeptical for a year and a half, during which I found little work. I was not too well at the time, and I was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. So, you know, even though he had that sudden spiritual awakening, his job didn't come back. He had waves of resentment. You know, he's still facing those trials. He couldn't find work, and he's a stockbroker used to making a lot of money. So stuff was hitting him. But then what happens? This sometimes nearly drove me back to drink. Highlight this. But I soon found that when all other measures failed, work with another alcoholic would save the day. Work with another alcoholic would save the day.
I think that's a misconcept that a lot of people get when they come into AA is, I got sober, now everything should come back in full force.
Assuming, yeah.
And they have those expectations that I'm sober now, everything's good, so everything should come back, and it doesn't work out that way. We don't pass go, we don't win the lottery, we still have work to do, you know?
I was taught very early what an expectation is. I'm glad you used that word. What's an expectation? You can write it down. It's a future resentment.
Anything to happen.
Uh-huh. If I'm expecting this to happen, I'm in self. And if it doesn't happen the way I think it should happen, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to get angry. 100% of the time, it doesn't happen the way I want it to happen. 100%. So, yeah. But that step, you know, we're still in step 1. We're on page 15. But what step is he saying will never fail?
Well,
Work with another alcoholic. Like I said, throughout this book, it's going to keep on emphasizing it. There's times that, you know, I can do steps 1 through 11 in one day and still feel like crap. That step 12 has never failed. And I can honestly say that in 15 years it hasn't. Whether it be in here or outside, if I try to make an attempt to help someone, it's going to take away what's going on in my mind. That's what Bill's trying to emphasize here. Remember, how did Bill stay sober for 6 months? We learned about it. There was no Dr. Bob. There was no other alcoholics. He was trying to help Dr. Silkworth's patients. None of them stayed sober. Who stayed sober? He did. Never forget that. Many times I have gone to my old hospital in despair on talking. You notice how the writing, how he's saying this. He's going to Silkworth's hospital in despair. He himself is in despair. He's not a patient there. He's going to the hospital because he's mentally in despair. On talking to a man there, I would be amazingly lifted up and set on my feet.
What does despair mean?
Ooh, look at you, Dimitri. I don't have the definition for despair. Neither does Bill.
I'm gonna look it up.
I got you.
We'll want a couple.
1934.
They can read and write something down.
Hopelessness, the loss of all hope or confidence. That which destroys hope.
Yeah, I got complete loss or absence of hope.
The opposite of every need. That's what every need is about, right?
Yep. Should be, at least. And here's what I call the big book. This next sentence. It is a design for living that works in rough going. This big book to me is a design for living.
It's manual of life.
Yep. The definition of design is specific instructions. So this book gives me specific instructions of what to do when something goes wrong or something goes right. We commence to make many fast friends, and fellowship has grown up among us, of which it is a wonderful thing to feel a part. The joy of living we really have, even under pressure and difficulty. I have seen hundreds of families set on their feet in the path that really goes somewhere. These are all promises. These things happen. Have seen the most impossible domestic situations righted, feuds and bitterness of all sorts wiped out. I have seen men come out of asylums and resume a vital place in the lives of their families and communities. Business and professional men have regained their standing. There is scarcely any form of trouble and misery which has not been overcome among us. In one western city and its environs, there are 1,000 of us in our families. We meet frequently so that, and I have this highlighted, so that newcomers may find the fellowship they seek. Why do they have meetings frequently? Newcomers. It's going to help them regardless, but without the newcomer, none of them are going to stay sober. That's why the newcomer is so important. That's why the new person is so important. If this room was just filled with people 30 years sober and no one needed help, would it last? So the meetings actually kept moving forward, and they multiplied because of the newcomer that needed help.
They went from driving an hour and a half to somebody's house for 5 people to like 50 to 200 people in a meeting.
Yep.
That's a big
It's pretty
deal.
amazing.
Is that why you say to bounce around to meetings and stuff?
Absolutely. Yep. I need to do more of that. Usually that's the best thing to do is go to as many different meetings as possible. You don't want to stay stagnant or complacent in the same place. I've done that before. And you can start getting resentment at that place. At the people, absolutely.
No.
Yep. So it's a good thing to go to different meetings, absolutely.
I know that's right, but like, I know that if I had just stayed with the few meetings that I do, my sobriety.
Like this one?
Yeah. This is still my favorite meeting, man. This is always.
We don't stop praying for you. We're just glad to see you back.
And the thing is if one meeting isn't working, then yeah, venture out.
There you go.
Find something. If one meeting is working, stay there, get what you can, you know? I mean, it's all, that's why there's so many meetings, because there's so many different ways of doing this.
Yeah, because, I mean, even when I was new, I would have the mindset of, well, this meeting's going to be bad. And I could hear, 30 people saying good things. I'd hear one bad thing. The whole group is bad. And leave, never come back. My mind would do that. So,
My mind still does that.
and that's why our mind, and that's why we got to do the opposite. We could hear 30 bad things. If there's one good thing, that's what we got to take away, is that one good thing.
Gotta be open-minded.
Okay. At these informal gatherings, one may often see from 50 to 200 persons. We are growing in numbers and power. An alcoholic in his cups is an unlovely creature. Our struggles with him are variously strenuous, comic, and tragic. One poor chap committed suicide in my home. And I have this highlighted. He could not or would not see our way of life. When it says would not, it means no willingness.
What was that last part?
When it says would not,
No
it-
willingness.
no willingness.
Open-minded, willing, and honest.
Up there where it says we are growing in numbers and power, and that asterisk, and what's your book on the bottom says how many groups?
All our dates are going to be different.
Yeah. Mine says 2015, approximately 115,358 groups.
In this one here, it says in the first edition, that sentence read 40 to 80 persons.
Mhm.
40 to 80 persons, not
Yeah,
groups.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
See,
most of it.
I mean,
Yeah.
see what AA did?
Mhm.
That's why they called it a mushrooming process. It just, they were expecting so little, and it went crazy worldwide.
The French call it the best import from the US.
Really?
there's another thing in this one too, that the poor chap that committed suicide in his home,
Mm-hmm.
the address is 182 Clinton Street, Brooklyn Heights, Brooklyn, New York.
Wow. There is, however, a vast amount of fun about it all. I suppose some would be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity. Levity means lack of seriousness. Seriousness. We actually have fun. And that's something I never believed either. I thought it'd be impossible to have fun in AA.
That's what I thought when I first got on the program.
Yep.
How am I gonna have fun without drinking
Yep.
and music?
I thought I'd never laugh again, and it turned out to be exact. I've never laughed so hard in recovery than I have in my entire life.
I
Some-
can attest to that.
Yep.
I lived at the mission for a year and I hated it. Now I go back 2 or 3 times a week.
I've worked there for 2 years, and I hate it, but I can go back.
I got lucky. I found a meeting that was chaotic and crazy, and it was in between a bar and a liquor store, and music thumping at night, and candles going, and I mean, just craziness. So I didn't have to try and grow up and do all this stuff right off the bat. I got to still be crazy, and if it wasn't for
can.
that, probably wouldn't have
Yeah.
stayed.
We can get as crazy as we want in here, sober. You can.
Yep.
But just underneath, there is deadly earnestness, and I have this highlighted. Faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. That is a promise.
Not more than 2 hours.
That is a promise.
Get it?
Faith without works is... Most of us feel we need to look no further for utopia. We have it with us right here and now. Each day, my friend's simple talk in our kitchen multiplies itself in a widening circle of peace on earth and goodwill to men. Bill W., co-founder of AA, died January 24th, 1971. So pretty awesome chapter. Hopefully you saw the progression of the disease, but he carried a lot of solution, and especially how he did the work. You know, he didn't mess around. There's actually another AA approved book called Back to Basics, and it's doing the steps in a month. You know, it's a thin book, but it was an early book of how, you know, they did the steps very quickly. You want to do them quickly, you want to do them thoroughly, but you don't want to mess around with them. You know, you don't want to get stuck.
They used to take people and do the first 4 steps in the room right
Boom,
away.
right above the, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And then, well, first 5, and then after that came,
They called it the upper room.
Yep.
They would take newcomers up there and they, you know, first 3 steps done, they get them started on their 4th step while the meeting was going on downstairs.
There's another book at this other meeting I go to, it's called Living Sober.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's a good book.
I like that.
Yeah,
that one.
good book. Yeah.
We got spoon for that in rehab. There's a lot I took from it that I still remember. Good stuff in there.
All right, chapter 2. There is a solution. Right off the bat, we got to know what the definition for solution is. An answer to a problem. An answer to a problem.
So mine,
To a
I
problem?
put hope on the beginning of it, and I put the acronyms like hold
Good.
on, pain ends.
Good.
And the solution part.
Good.
Definitely hope for that one.
We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill. Highlight this. Nearly all have, there's that word again, recovered. Recovered from what?
A hopeless state of mind.
Hopeless state of mind and body.
In the first edition, it said that read 100 have all recovered.
Recovered.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, it said of the first 100, 50% recovered immediately, never drank again. And then the other half, you know, it took a little bit of time, but they recovered.
Now, when you say drinking, does that mean like one beer or one bottle?
You got to catch him up on the allergy. So I mean, to know that truly you are an alcoholic, you have that beer, and what happens?
You want more?
So, in the
It's
chapter.
going to describe an allergy.
me and Don will catch you up on all this.
In the chapter before this, it's the doctor's opinion. As a doctor, he tells you to go ahead and try some controlled drinking. I recently tried that. It wasn't controlled. Because there is no such thing as one beer. Not for me. There nobody go out for one drink, you know. I mean, and then it says, hats off to the gentleman that can drink like a gentleman. But I know for me that ain't.
The two guys that took Desire chips, you notice what's happening. Okay? Just noticing what's happening. That's what happened with Bill and Ebby. You know, same thing. But he'll get you through. You got to understand the physical part. You know, we are allergic to drugs and alcohol. No matter what we try, having one is not an option. We try to make it an option.
Having one's not enough and 1,000 is not enough.
That's it.
Why would anyone have one?
Yeah, it becomes pointless after
I
that.
never said I could have two drinks, ever.
Have you had,
No, my foot.
have you ever had just one drink?
All right, they have solved the drink problem. We are average Americans. All sections of this country and many of its occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We are people who normally would not mix. I have this highlighted. But there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. It truly is. It truly is. We are like the passengers of a great liner, the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. Subside, to sink to the bottom. To sink to the bottom. To sink to the bottom. The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us. But that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. Our past, what we've gone through, binds us together. I have this whole paragraph bracketed and highlighted, and I have hope written out to the side. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
We have a common goal.
We do. But we have a solution, thank God. You know, I didn't think there was. You guys told me there was. I didn't believe you. But going through the book and going through the process, you realize that solution is there, and it's not only spiritual, it's miraculous. So even if whoever you're working with doesn't believe it at that point, it's okay. An illness of this sort, highlight this, and we have come to believe it, an illness involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. Got to remember, a lot of people don't think alcoholism is an illness, even to this day. It's gotten better, and most people do, but you still get the, why don't you just stop? You know, you
Gee,
get that
thanks.
all. Just don't drink.
There was
use
a
your
huge
willpower.
meeting that got into that controversy,
Oh,
and people
yeah.
in the meeting were, it's not an illness, it's not a disease. I'm
Really?
like, oh my
Oh,
goodness.
Yeah.
Inside the meeting.
See, I mean, this is why this workshop is arming all of you. You know, the big book is the foundation of our recovery. So when you hear that in the meeting, you say, top of page 18, what does it say? It's an illness, you know. We are responsible. You see that in the rooms too. We are responsible. When we hear a message that doesn't come out of the big book, we should share it.
The new book,
They
the new
wanna
big
give-
book, the 5th edition, that was
They
the
wanna
big book
call
for
it a
dummies,
habit.
big
Yeah.
book for dummies.
Yeah.
They're saying alcohol is not a disease, it is a habit.
Yeah, it's like,
If they ever call this a habit, it would kill
That's what
people. It
they're
would kill
calling
people.
it a habit now.
Biting my nails is a habit.
is that
You know, I
what
can
the
stop
OA
that.
doesn't pop
So
up?
the new edition coming out is,
We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a workshop on it and break it down. It sounds like I don't want to, though, from what I'm
I'll go
hearing.
right to the
but-
service office
Yeah.
in New York and raise hell.
there's a
You're already
resentment
gonna
that you
reach
need.
If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him and no one is angry or hurt, but not so with the alcoholic illness. I have the rest of this highlighted. This is why it's an illness. It's not a habit. For with it, there goes annihilation of all things worthwhile in life.
Annihilation.
And annihilation means to destroy completely. Destroy completely. Annihilation. Destroy completely.
I think, for me, you talk about the new book for dummies, whatever you called it. If they simplify it that much, I think it loses its genuality.
Mhm.
Because
would.
looking up these words and having to study this made a big difference in my sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Looking it up and going, what does that word mean? What are they talking about here? Because I'm not quite understanding it. Because, when I first came in, my mind was clouded.
Yep.
And then having to go through this and going, wait a minute, what are they saying here? Well, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out.
Yep.
And that's what my sponsor did with them,
Me too.
And if they're gonna dumb it down so you can understand it, a 5-year-old can understand it, then I think it takes away a lot of
It will take away a lot.
It
a
will.
lot of it. Yeah, I guess the best way to put it.
The authenticity, I can't even say that word.
Well, I mean, you want to study it.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
to study
When I
it.
came in here, I did not know how to read very well. I don't comprehend. When I read, I don't remember what I read. To this day, I still have a problem with that. And I need to study, I gotta be able to study it and look it up. I never opened up a dictionary in my lifetime
Right.
until I came into this program.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stop there.
No,
but
that's fine.
Like going through that, and then him talking about that, some of these, I mean, I know some of these words, what they mean in general sense, but not the actual definition.
I can't read a book to this day without highlighting and writing in it now. It's the only way I can retain. The way I learned the big book 15 years ago is how I go through every book. The Bible, whatever I'm reading, that's how I go through it. Because that's the only way I retain it. I can read a page and not know anything that I read. What did I just read? So, but if I'm if I'm highlighting, if I'm looking words up, it's going to help me retain.
I have to write it all down, otherwise I
Yeah.
can't.
Well, so I was, when I'm in church, I'm always taking notes, so I
Yep.
can keep,
Mhm.
that's how I remember.
Yep.
And plus I have my notes.
That's a
to
good-
go home and study.
Yeah. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents. Anyone can increase the list.
There's a comma.
Habits don't do that.
Right.
Illnesses do. So there's a huge difference right there. We hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are or may be affected. There are many. Highly competent psychiatrists who have dealt with us have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. Strangely enough, wives, parents, and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist and the doctor. Why is that? I wrote denial right next to that. Do we ever tell the psychiatrist or the doctor when we're out there using and drinking the full truth?
No.
No. Our loved ones? No. So that's why they find it impossible to help us, because we don't give them a fair shake either. Here's a whole paragraph of italicized words. But the ex-problem drinker who has found the solution, who is properly armed with facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. What are the facts that we are armed with? Our experience, our past. That's why I said everybody has that tool to help somebody. Whether you're a day or 50 years sober, you can talk to someone about your past, and the conversation, is usually a good conversation.
Hanging out with my friends has been my addiction, and we used to say, hey, well, we do a bunch of crazy stuff. We should write a book on it. Nobody's ever done this before. And then you come to AA, and it's like, oh no, we did that. That's
We hear that every day.
What are
Yeah.
you talking
That
about?
was Tuesday.
Yeah. But I mean, and I used to look at that time as everything that, the drinking, the drugging, everything that I did, I thought I wasted 17 years of my life. It turns out every second of that time I was drinking and using can be used to help someone else. Every second. That's what God does. He turns something bad into something good.
I think that was definitely one thing that I struggled with. It was even, when I was 3 months, it was like I had to get to this point, and it was like I was ashamed of it.
Mm-hmm.
I still am, if I'm being honest.
That's normal though. In order for us we have to get to that point of surrender. I pray to God this is your final point of surrender you have to get to. So, yeah. All of us. What you're feeling, we've all gone through. And we can continue to go through it, years of sobriety. But
And
there's
the
a
big-
solution.
The big thing that helped me through that was a little passage called Why We Were Chosen. And it talks about how God chose us to be able to be the saviors because we've walked this path, because of our experience, because we are the only people that can hear others in need of help who are going through this.
We recognize the signs.
We do.
Yeah, and others in need of help will only listen to us. So
Yeah.
we were chosen for this. It's a path that many can't do.
Mm-hmm. We're armed with the problem and the solution. You know what the solution is. You do. You just got to grasp onto it and do it.
Hey, you know the definition of insanity is?
Yeah,
What?
doing the same thing over and over.
Ooh.
Finding
Nope.
something that works and not doing it.
Nope.
Exhibiting a serious, debilitating mental disorder. That's insanity. Not the Albert Einstein opinion. Look it up. The man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he is talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect, that he is a man with the real answer, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful. That there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. I wrote miracles right next to that. We are in a room filled with miracles. Does everybody remember that definition? Divine intervention in human affairs is a miracle. Divine intervention in human affairs. None of us make a sole vocation of this work, nor do we think its effectiveness would be increased if we did. I would highlight this. We feel that elimination of our drinking is but a... And that's where I was always confused. I always thought when I put the alcohol away, that's when things are going to start getting better. When I put the alcohol and drugs away, that's when the mental obsession really kicks in. That's when the pain can really kick in. That's why we go back to it, right?
Because there's nothing quiet in that, there's voices in our head.
Like Dr. Silkworth said, what did he say? We have that mind that cannot differentiate the true from the false. The mind that's not in reality.
That's why I was saying drugs and alcohol were never my problem. It was always the solution of my problem.
Right.
Because it's the only solution I knew.
Yep. So the elimination is, that's the very, very start, but don't think the pain is going to stop just because I stopped drinking. You know, that's when you really realize what your problem is. And that's untreated alcoholism. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. And I wrote how to live right next to that. A demonstration, that involves action. And it's telling us to do that in our homes, in our occupations, and our affairs. Not just in the rooms of AA. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all their time to the work. Man, I'm still struggling with this cold. Highlight this. If we keep on the way we are going, there is little doubt that much good will result. But the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. That is a promise. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection by close by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. Many could recover if they had the opportunity that we have enjoyed. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given to us? Okay, I would highlight this whole small paragraph. I bracketed it and put solution right out to the side. We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall bring to the task our combined experience and knowledge. This should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with the drinking problem. So the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is the combined experience and knowledge of the first 100 alcoholics. I used to have a stack of books this high when I came in. I need to read a little bit out of everything. No, at the beginning I just need this book. The book will direct me to read other books, very important books, but not until step 11. So when you're helping someone, this is all they need to get through the steps. Of necessity, there will have to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware that these matters are from the very nature controversial. Nothing would please us so much as to write a book which would contain no basis for contention or argument. We shall do our utmost to achieve that ideal. I have this highlighted. Most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions are attitudes which make us more useful to others. Respecting other people's opinions, what a concept. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs.
Next to that paragraph, I have code of conduct.
What's our code of conduct?
Love and tolerance.
Helping others, that's right. Absolutely. Again, what's the theme? Helping others does not stop. In every chapter in this book, it's going to keep on bringing that home.
Yeah, get out of your stuff.
And remember, this is not a selfish program. We'll get into that, but it's a selfless program, not a selfish program. We're going to read how selfishness is the root of our problem. There's and you can see it. I think it's on YouTube, but Bill he gave this speech, and there was thousands of people there, and he said exactly that. He said this is a selfless program. How many alcoholics do you think took selfish out of that and ran with it to different meetings? You still hear it today. This is a selfish program. It's about, no. Selfishness is the root cause of my problem. Selfless.
The selfish thing, it always did bother me.
Yep.
It's like, you gotta be sober for yourself, yeah. But
You
this
do.
isn't- I've never thought that this was a self, I think, the root of the book, like, is the opposite of that
It
completely.
is. It's others. Yep.
And like, we have to be like selfish about our sobriety, but like, we really, I don't know, yeah, that one always bothered me. 'Cause I didn't-
It's because people overthink things.
Boy, can we. You may already have asked yourself, why is it that all of us became so very ill from drinking? Doubtless you are curious to discover how and why, in the face of expert opinion to the contrary, we have, there it is again, recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. Thank God. Thank God for that. If you are an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, here's the question, what do I have to do? What's the answer? It is the purpose of this book to answer such questions specifically. We shall tell you what we have done. Before going into a detailed discussion, it may be well to summarize some points as we see them. I have this whole paragraph highlighted. How many times people have said to us, I can take it or leave it alone. Why can't he? Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? We were just talking about this, right? That fellow can't handle his liquor. Why don't you try beer and wine? Lay off the hard stuff. His willpower must be weak. He could stop if he wanted to. She's such a sweet girl. I should think he'd stop for her sake. The doctor told him that if he ever drank again, it would kill him, but there he is, all lit up again. Now, these are commonplace observations on drinkers, which we hear about all the time. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. Good time to look up the word ignorance. Lacking knowledge, uninformed. Lacking knowledge, uninformed. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours. And this is a good place to stop. So we'll stop on page 20 and start with moderate drinkers next week. So this will be good because it's going to break down 3 types of drinkers. Moderate drinkers, heavy drinkers, and us, the real alcoholic. Has anybody ever heard anybody introduce themselves as a real alcoholic?
Yes.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It means they read the book. I'm a real alcoholic. We're going to see what that is next week. So